is a Gandhi quote, which is, "My life is my message."
Oh, hell.
Okay, and if you wouldn't mind,
I'm sorry.
you can mute yourself, Brenda, then we won't hear them.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I don't know what I
That's
did,
fine.
and I can't see anybody or anything. I don't know what I've done.
So to start with, here you have two little girls. As you know, little girls are like little boys. We come into the world and we actually have no idea what our journey is going to be. So for me, I was even reading, because I've just moved home, I was reading my report cards from primary school, which was quite delightful to see. So being a child, for me, was very traumatic. I come from a family that was just overrun with loss, divorce, death, financial difficulties, and was very unusual because if you looked like me in apartheid South Africa, you were seen to be privileged. And I was very much not that way. At the age of 1, I was taken to my aunt's home because my mother was facing terrible situations with my father, who had had a terrible plane smash. He was in hospital for a long, long time, looking after the business, my 2 older sisters. So I never bonded with her, and we never had a relationship for the rest of my life. It was a very traumatic relationship. My real father died when I was 14, but I only re-met him when I was 7 because my parents divorced when I was 3. And my stepfather, who I was super close to, died when I was 10. My mother worked very hard, and she literally chose lunch money or bus money for herself to go to work. And so we were left our own devices growing up. We had a wonderful, wonderful nanny who I was super, super close to. And being raised in an apartheid situation, it was very troubling for me because we were raised in apartments, in flats in Johannesburg. And I would look down and all these nannies that I was so close to would be thrown into the backs of vans. And I was traumatized as a child. You cannot understand that. And at the same time, we always had parks around us. And when someone didn't know where I was playing with the babies in the parks. And that set the stage, I think, for my entire life. I was always then busy with children's lives, and we will get to that later. So breaking the cycle for me and making it against all odds was part of my upbringing, because what I did was I looked at all the adults around me and I realized that they didn't know what to do with me, let alone what to do with their own lives. So I self-parented my entire life. And Vivian, on the other hand, being raised as a little girl in South Africa, well, she had a totally different experience, and yet in so many ways, so similar.
Yes, Kim, for sure. I think a lot of my friends that I hear in this workshop today is people that have sort of wondered, a lot of them have sort of wondered about my story, and some of them knows a little bit about my story. So if you see the picture that Kim showed before, it's a picture of me in a small 2-bedroom house where I grew up. So I grew up in South Africa in a small township called Vosloorus. And growing up, I lost my mother at the very young age, 10, 11 years old. And we lost our father before then. So my mother was basically a single parent. And so after losing my mother, we were all fairly still very young. So we literally had to fend for ourselves. So if you saw one of the titles that we have there is Children Raising Children. It was not necessarily children raising our children, but it was children raising themselves. I remember this one time things got so tough that we didn't even have anything to eat at night. Even sleeping and waking up, we didn't have any food to eat. And I remember my oldest sister would always every day leave the house to go to a friend's house. And for me, I mean, I was 10, 11 years old. I didn't really have friends that I can say I can visit every day. And I always wondered, and my sister at that time was about 14, 15 years old. And I always wondered, why does she always leave in the morning and she never comes back and says, I'm hungry, while the rest of us are saying, I'm hungry. Can we please go to the house next door to ask for food or something to eat? What is happening? And we started investigating amongst ourselves as siblings to understand where my sister is going every morning, and to find that she was actually going to a friend's house where they would give her food. And so we then made a deal with my other siblings to say, are we also going to find friends that gives us food, or we just gonna go for that one friend that gives my sister food because we are sure that we will get something to eat? And so at some point we got very angry with her to say, we've been spending days without anything to eat, and you go to your friend's house and you have something to eat and you don't even bring us anything. So we had those kind of expectations from her, but at the end of the day, she was also only a child and trying to make things, ends meet for herself. So that's how I grew up, and I think then Kim, we will as the presentation go along, we will then mention our connection with Kim and why we decided on having this talk today and where we are now in our lives. Kim, I don't know if we should move to the next slide.
So for me, my life then took a change, and I walked out of Schindler's List really traumatized, and the trajectory of my life changed completely. I never wanted a career. I wanted, because of my childhood, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and the best wife possible. But as they say, man plans and God laughs. So obviously we went with God's plan because it was just a little bit more powerful than my own. And walking out of Schindler's List, I was sobbing, and I realized that that was a humanitarian issue. And if I wanted my children to be raised in a better world, then best I get involved. And I landed up running Survivors of the Shoah Visual History Foundation Institute in South Africa and Zimbabwe that was started by Steven Spielberg. It's the largest archive of oral history for Holocaust in the world. And it's based out of USC, University of Southern California. And I ran it in South Africa and Zimbabwe for 18 years. And the lessons that I learned from Holocaust survivors gave me so much wisdom. I used to watch them. They had come out of the most horrendous genocide that you could not imagine anyone being able to come out and create a life. So what did I learn from them? What was the wisdom? I learned what tenacity means to the nth degree. I learned that you move forward no matter what your internal pain and trauma is, and strength of the human spirit, which we all have. Each one of you watching this, you all have that strength of the human spirit. And the last thing I learned, and so importantly, is not to judge anyone by their external appearances. The Holocaust survivors that I was involved with were from Europe. They were immaculate. And they would always see me, and the joke was, where's your lipstick? Or why do you look so bad? Because you had to have the appearance. And yet underneath that, they had gone through the worst, most horrific experience. And yet they had families and children, and they woke up every day and tried to actually make a life. The next thing led me to the Apartheid Museum. I became one of the founding directors there, and I sat on Human Rights Commission for Education. And I was interviewed so many times on radio and TV and was asked, who is my role model. And I had the most wonderful woman working for me, helping me raise my children. Because of apartheid, she only went up to grade 4. She didn't have the opportunities. And yet, this was my role model, and she still is. What did I learn from her? I learned that the lessons learned were unconditional love, so much love that she gave to me and my children. The commitment that she has to life and to what she did was just exceptional. Her work ethic, I have never come across anyone since Rosalind with better work ethic. And her acceptance without malice. She never bore a grudge. She was so grateful for everything that she had, every opportunity. Her unwavering faith, she's Christian, and her unwavering faith was just simply remarkable. And the last, as you can see, her smile. What a smile. She would walk in every single day, and she lived life alongside me. And she was there no matter what, and she still is. She worked with and for me for 30 years, and we are still totally connected, and I speak to her every week.
Wow.
So now going on to Viv, I would like to just share a screen for her, and she can share a little bit about her life.
So going back to my connection with Kim, 11 years ago, we got an opportunity to have more or less the same platform in USA at the UN. And I was in my early 20s, 2021. And the story that I shared in that platform was the story about my journey and how me losing my parents at a very young age and having to fend for myself has made me feel. And because the process of us, being orphans has led, us to having some sort of a division amongst myself and my sisters and my brother. But a division not in a bad way. We were all going through a process of, finding some sort of healing, trying to survive, and therefore we were divided. And we were never at a point where we sat down as siblings and say, let me know how this made you feel. Let me know how was the journey was for you. And through this workshop today, I had an opportunity to then reach out to my siblings, and I wanted to understand their journey and their healing process into what we have experienced growing up. And if you can see on the previous slide where that Kim just removed, it's a picture of me and one of my sisters that is now doing an amazing work within my business. Cynthia, she works with me, but she's one of my siblings that I never had any sort of relationship with her after my mother passed away. And I've missed her so much. And it has taken us more than 20 years to start rebuilding on our relationship. And also, I have one brother that grew up amongst 5 women, where we are all very strong charactered women. And he went into the journey where he became a very irresponsible human being, a very irresponsible father. And it was all through the hurt of not, having and suffering, and also failing us in a way that when after my mother passed away, he was the oldest one. He was only 18 years old. But amongst all of us, he was the oldest one. So the pressure was upon him to take care of ourselves, even when all the the funds that you get when someone passed away in the family. He had that responsibility. And we sort of felt that he has failed us because he didn't take care of us when we were growing up. He didn't provide for us. And that created that sort of a division, even though we still loved each other dearly. So on the third slide of our presentation is just showing the recovering process to say that we're coming all together as a family. We're trying to assist where we can from our niece's point of view. And also, one important thing that has driven me, besides my sad story, so to say that I grew up without parents, etc. One thing that has driven me and that has kept me going is that I have to figure out a way to break the cycle within my family. And I didn't have that much of a hope from my sisters and my brother because we were so damaged from a head point of view. And one thing that I knew that I had to do was I needed to go back and help my nieces and nephews. However, I knew that the only connection towards me connecting with my nieces and nephews is through their parents, which happens to be my sisters and my brother. And it was very important for me to get them together, for them to be in my team and know that I am not trying to hurt the family. I am still also in a process of healing myself. I would like to support them to see how they can get healed in the process, but let's not hurt the young kids that are growing up. And I think through me communicating with my family openly about my journey, about me being ready to share my story to try and change someone's life. And before I wrap up my session of this slide, last year, when I was restarting, my business in South Africa, I reached out to one of my neighbors that went to a private school his whole life. His mother had a very, very good job, and his father, he spoke fluent English because he went to a private school in South Africa. So he grew up well. And this young man was my neighbor. And he was one neighbor that every time we would go to his house with, a bowl to either ask for sugar or something, because we used to ask for something every day, some neighbors, when we were coming in, they would just lock the doors so they don't respond because they know that we're going to be asking for something. And he was one person that every time we would go to his house and his mother would say, no, we don't have it, it's finished. He would try to, find a way to, squeeze it out of the house, sneak it out of the house for us. And to cut a long story short, this young man, he didn't have it easy after, finishing a university. He struggled to find a job, and he then, went into drugs, alcohol. So he was a mess. And one thing that I've always remembered when I was young was that if I know I'm going to get successful, when that day comes, I need to come back to him. And I didn't know that he was not going to turn out right in his life, but I knew I had to come back to him and thank him for those nights when he didn't close the door. And I found him. And when I found him, I was in a hotel and he was trying to reach me, but he was calling me from a very, low data kind of a setup. So he kept on trying to say, I'm downstairs by the receptionist, and the phone would cut. And it was like 2 hours of me waiting for him and he's not getting there. But he was there, but he was not able to reach me because he didn't have any air to call me from his phone. And he found me. Eventually, when he found me, I said, but I waited for you for so long. I thought we were going to have lunch together. He's like, no, I tried to phone you, but this phone, and he takes out the phone. The phone was cracked and he didn't have airtime in his phone. And I just said, okay, fine, let's go. We went into the nearest store and I bought him a phone. And I just wanted to, fix it for him. I offered him a job right away and things like that. So, hence I'm saying on this slide, I wanted us to show that process of going back and trying to fix it, even though we don't fix it from an emotional point of view, because I know that I will never be able to heal my sisters and my brother, and I know that the world will never heal me for what I have went through. But I have found mechanisms in my life to apply to be able to accept what has happened in my life, and be able to teach the young people that are coming after me, a way of doing things, and share my experiences.
Thank you, Viv. Thank you for that. And Vivian's being very humble, because I don't think she explained to you just how bad it is to live in South Africa in a child-headed household. The South African government doesn't give you help. There are no food banks. When you have no food, there's no food. They would go into the fields to eat grass on some days, just to survive. So her knowing that she needed education so that she could break the cycle moving forward is massive.
Yeah, so because when earlier on Kim was explaining about the apartheid era in South Africa, so during the apartheid era, when Nelson Mandela was coming out of the prison, there was a lot of good and bad things that were happening in South Africa during that time. And so my mother decided to move us to a place called Lesotho, which is it's an independent nation, but it's inside South Africa. So we moved there for about 4 years. And while we were there, we were taught how to, go on fields and look for, some sort of something like spinach, but we have a traditional name for it, where you find in the fields, and we would eat those kind of food in order to survive. And Lesotho, even today, is still one of the poorest nations in Africa.
Thank you, Viv. So going back to the slide presentation, my journey then took me from Holocaust and genocide. And the one day I remember coming out of a school where I had been teaching about Anne Frank and sobbing because no one knew who she was. So I set up my first nonprofit, where I became an Ashoka Fellow out of Washington, and it was Tolerance Foundation. Tolerance Foundation taught children, over 70,000 kids in schools in South Africa, SELs, life skills, but using history. So what we would do is that we would hone the history into the child's life using Holocaust, apartheid, Rwanda, Kosovo. So we taught what is tolerance, choice, responsibility, consequence, love and fear. What does it mean to be a bystander? How do you get involved in life? How do you change life? And how do you learn the lessons from history? South Africa then went through a major change around HIV/AIDS, and my generation was literally wiped out, which was Vivian's parents. AIDS decimated South Africa. And unfortunately, there were just no medical support or structures to help people survive. So I went on then, and I was asked by another Ashoka Fellow to go into a rural area to see what he was doing. And he had taken an old coal mine and turned it into an AIDS orphan sanctuary. So you had all the houses with 10 kids and a house mother. And I just cried the entire day, seeing these children become orphans, but worse than that, seeing them being traumatized by watching their parents die from the worst disease ever. It just decimates you. And for children to witness that, I knew that they weren't going to get over that too easily. So I decided this wasn't my space. How do I learn what to do? So what did I do? I did an oral history project on the kids, because that was my background from Showa Foundation. And what came out of it was that the mothers were dying of HIV/AIDS on their deathbed, leaving the kids with a thought process that only education is going to change your life. So you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to work this one out. And as an absolute social entrepreneur, once you see a problem, there's no turning back. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I decided I needed 3 things to start this. I went to a hospice event and I bumped into Cyril Ramaphosa, who is now the president of South Africa. And he had been involved with my work for many years. And he said to me, Kim, what are you doing? I said, oh, I don't know. I think I'm going to do education, post-secondary for OVC, orphan and vulnerable children. And he looked at me and he said, put it on my desk tomorrow. And I said, Cyril, it's a page. He said, Kim, put it on my desk tomorrow. He called me the next morning and he said, what will it take you to start this? And it even makes me emotional just going through this story. And I said to him, join me as my first trustee, I'll do it. Cyril said to me, fine. He said, you know, I'm not coming to any meetings. I'm going to send Donnay, who's his right-hand lady and still now even in government. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I needed 3 things. I needed a board that would trust me and would let me really run with this in a big way. So I had the most amazing people like Yvonne Chaka Chaka and Cyril and many others. The next thing, I needed awareness and I needed money. So how could I do that? I went to the biggest radio station in South Africa and I convinced them to do a radiothon. Within a week, we had this massive, the largest radiothon ever done in South Africa with 94.7. And within 12 hours, we had raised 5 million rand. So I got the awareness, I got the money, and I had the most amazing board. Now I had to find the kids, okay? They didn't know who I was. So what's this white woman? Who is she? Don't forget it was apartheid. They didn't know who I was. We were just coming out of the apartheid era. So I went to the grassroots organizations that I'd been doing the oral history project that worked out. It was my first book and it was my research document. And I had 15 kids for post-secondary. The one, Lieto, I met him outside one of the theaters in the city. He had no clothes at all. He was living in a shack. He was a child-headed household with 5 siblings underneath him. And I raided my cousin's wardrobe. I said, just give me all the clothes you don't wear. And I filled my trunk up. I drove to meet Lieto. I opened the trunk and I said, take whatever you want. And he looked at me and was like, this woman has to be crazy. Like, who is she? But he took the clothes, okay, because he needed them. And that was the start of Tomorrow Trust. Yeah. Unfortunately, what I didn't realize was that these 15 kids coming out of grade 12 couldn't get into university. Their grades weren't good enough. So we put them into community college and they were getting 70 and 80%. So we realized that their grade 12 marks were not indicative of their potential. That if they had decent schooling, they would have different choices. How tragic was that? So here we go, morphing it around. We went back to grade 10 and we boot camped. And what I did was I ran to private schools and I said, I need your teachers, I need your classrooms. Because if you're going to teach a kid to reach for something new, you have to change their point of reference. The point of reference where these kids came from was absolute poverty, struggle, and failure. So I got a lot of flack going on from donors to say, well, if you stayed in the townships, then you could do so many more kids. I go, no, this is about getting them out, showing them a different side so they can be the role models for many others. And that's what we did. So we went back to grade 10. By the time they got to us in grade 10, we were teaching them grade 4 work because the education system in South Africa had broken. Post-apartheid, it was completely broken. So every school holiday, every Saturday, these poor kids came and we just went for it. When I started Tomorrow Trust, I knew it had to be integrated. It had to be holistic. Remember my childhood? Parents didn't know what they were doing. So I realized, coming from a very academic family, that academics is the key to open a job. That's it. doesn't teach you how to live life. So Tomorrow Trust was psychosocial, it was self-mastery, it was self-consciousness, it was all the social emotional learning. And every month I would teach those lessons because that was my life experience. And I would teach it to all the kids. By the time they got from grade 10 to grade 12, these kids were flying. They were getting into every university for any degree, from medicine to law to accountancy, whatever they wanted to do. So then we decided, hang on, grade 10, we're fixing them. We need to build. So we went all the way back to K1, to grade R, and then we built them up. And last year, Tomorrow Trust won the most conscious organization in South Africa. It was, for me, the most incredible experience. The wisdom that I learned from every orphan and vulnerable kid affected by HIV/AIDS was tremendous. It was called hope, tenacity, and that strength of the human spirit, as I learned from the Holocaust survivors, to change their lives. Here was the trick. When I named it, I worked with a copywriter, and there's only one word in the dictionary that you can change, and that's tomorrow. You can make tomorrow into anything that you want it to be. So that was my experience as the founder, which came with a lot.
Yeah.
I would lie awake at night and worry how I was going to raise this money. I didn't only have my own 2 biological kids, and I was a single mom for 14 years. And there was no way. My son looked at me one day and said, Mom, look at your skills. Why don't you go work in a corporate? I said, are we short of anything? I can't work for a corporate. My soul, my heart isn't there. I have to do this work. And we did it. And I survived on it. Not only did I survive, I did really, really well. And so did my kids by watching it.
Yeah.
But I'd like to hand over, because you're a beneficiary of
Yeah.
the organization.
And I mean, you speak about people. I think I was part of the first or second group. So we were like the rookies of Tomorrow Trust. And, for us, Tomorrow Trust was hope. We left our dark situations and we would go to the Tomorrow Trust workshop, and it's at PwC, At some point, we didn't even know how to get to PwC because we were using public transport. We would always call Lorena, it was Kim's assistant at the time, to ask her, how do we move from the location to get to PwC? And she would say, I don't know. I don't live in the locations. I don't know. But for us, it was that sense of hope that, one day I want to work in this office. And we got that hope from the Tomorrow Trust. And for me, I've been lucky as a beneficiary of the Tomorrow Trust because I also have the relationship with the ex-graduates that were in my year from the organization. So when she's speaking about Lieto, I get teary because he's a very close friend of mine who's done very well for himself, has masters in political science or political something. And he works for one of the biggest radio stations in South Africa. In fact, the radio station that Kim mentioned earlier, where she went to fundraise, Lieto works for that station. And so for me, I've always wondered, how does this lady go to sleep at night with all these problems that we have? But we were really a case. So I thought my situation was bad or was worse. But when I look at other people, other fellow Tomorrow Trust beneficiaries that were in the organization with me, I would listen to their stories and I would just swab. And I don't know how she really, really did it to remain professional and to remain to her main goal, which was, I want to see these kids succeed. But most importantly, if you remember earlier, I spoke about the breaking of the cycle. Every time you would go to the Tomorrow Trust offices, Kim would tell you that it is not about the now and your situation now was about you understanding that you need to be the one that breaks that cycle in your family. And this is why I always, I moved ahead in my life from a professional point of view. I worked, I had a good career. One of the companies that I worked with in telecommunications in South Africa, it's actually a company that sponsored me to go on that UN trip that I spoke about earlier in New York. So I had a very pleasant, good career, and I was able, through the support and the mentorship programs that existed within the Tomorrow Trust, I was able to stick to my goal. But I knew that there was a lot that I was leaving behind. And I knew that there was a lot that still needs to be done behind me in order to be able to breaking that cycle. Do I think that I'm at the point where I have done that? No, but I still know that there is a way for me to do that and achieve that. And so these are all the qualities that I've learned from people like Kim and from being involved within the Tomorrow Trust. I'll tell you something for all my, my friends from the USA that I hear, and people from India and also people from South Africa. I have seen, because now I'm based full-time in Europe, I have seen how Africa is portrayed in other, parts of the world. And I tell you, Africa is not what is 80% of Africa when it comes to poverty, and the demonstration of that is not what is shown in the TV, but it's what we are sharing, myself and Kim, today, because we do have cases of children that never has a Tomorrow Trust in their lives. And some find a way to make it through, and some just keep hoping. And so, we've also had a lot of organizations in the country that have been supported by bigger organizations, especially from the USA, that have not achieved half of what the Tomorrow Trust has achieved. And maybe I can go on and on, because half of my life story was with the Tomorrow Trust. I can, when I remember when we had Dr. Bill Dorfman coming to speak to us. I don't know, I get thrown in my life journey by the emotional process, or maybe, some, smart people would say the spiritual process, and not necessarily the material process of our life journey. And I remember we were in this workshop where we had Dr. Bill Dorfman from California coming to do a workshop for us. And it was an exciting moment for us, because we were the one that was doing the registration of the doctors for the workshop, and we had to just get in and assist them. And I see my sister's name on the screen, so I got distracted. And so we had to come in and get involved in the registration process. But what people don't know is that the Tomorrow Trust had committed that through the workshop that they are going to do with Dr. Bill Dorfman, each and every doctor that is in that list needs to commit to giving a dental appointment to each and every student that belongs to the Tomorrow Trust. And my first dental appointment was with the doctor that had signed up to that workshop. I went back to South Africa, and later on, after my appointment, he wanted to know about me. So where are you from? Is the Tomorrow Trust really doing these things during my dental appointment? So he was and the name of the doctor, I'll never forget him. It was Dr. Akabo. And he was in Morningside. And I remember he kept on wanting to understand, is this for real? And I said, for the fact that I'm here, it means that it's for real, because if it was another organization, I wouldn't be here, but I'm here. So the Tomorrow Trust phoned you and made my first appointment with you. So that means that it's real. And he was very, very interested in me from a conversation point of view and understanding my story. And I don't know if I mentioned this to Kim, but one of my best friends And Gabelo's friend, the one that signed up, and I said she's my friend from high school, her first job, she worked for Dr. Akabo. When I went to South Africa, I phoned my friend and I said, please come, I have a tie to give to Dr. Akabo and thank him because he was my first dental doctor. The first experience I've ever had from a dentist point of view was with Dr. Akabo. So these are all the endless things that I can mention when it comes to the Tomorrow Trust. But one thing that I always want to highlight is the empowering of the Tomorrow Trust, not only from an educational point of view, because yes, we did benefit from an educational point of view because we got our degrees, we graduated and we were able to go into the professional world. But one thing that I always never want to take away from the Tomorrow Trust, and I think if you would put another Tomorrow Trust beneficiary in this platform, they would say the same thing, is the breaking up of the cycle of poverty in our family. Because from what we are taught within the organization, we were able to go back and do things differently, other than me saying, I have money, so I can give my brother a certain allowance every month. I don't do that. None of my siblings have an allowance from me, but they know that I have businesses that are always open for them for training or for a job, but they will never get a cent from me.
Thank you, Viv. And I think to close this slide, that is such an important point that I really used to teach strongly at Tomorrow Trust, because our beneficiaries would have so much guilt that they were getting this opportunity, and then their families would just want to suck them dry, you know. And I used to teach them, no, if you just hand out money, you keep them crippled. You don't want to do that. You want to empower them. You want to pay for their schooling. So pay for the little ones to go to school. Teach them how to empower themselves. And so what Vivian is telling you is just such an important aspect of that. Moving forward, a mother's love. So as you know, when you come from trauma as a child, as Vivian and myself did, you want a better life for your children. And so here's a slide that represents us both, her, Antonio, and mine, Jade and Brent, is that we still, both of us, give our children the best parties ever. All those cakes I made myself. I would spend hours to show the kids just how much this meant to me, because I wanted them to have memories of their childhood that I didn't have. I know for Vivian, she does the exact same thing with Antonio.
Yeah. And just on that, you know, I love my son, but I think every parent loves their children. But through this slide, I remember also the love that my mother had for me, because not only for me, but for us as her children, you know, it was a love that was undescribable. She came from a similar background, or even worse background, because she came from Lesotho, where she had to come to South Africa and work as a helper. And from there, she then had to, you know, work her way up. So she, you know, applied for a job in a hospital. She got that job and she worked as an assistant nurse. We didn't have a nanny, you know, my elder sister was looking after us. But I mean, coming back to the point of love, I know that she loved us in a way that is, I can't describe, and in a feeling that I cannot describe, because she made us feel that love in her actions, in, you know, the things that she did for us, you know, to provide for us, even when she was, you know, the single parent. And that is always a feeling that I always wonder, does Antonio even understand that? You know, some of my friends here, like Brenda and Indira, and also Kim, have also had the opportunity to meet my son. But I always wonder if he understands that love feeling that I have for him. And I wonder also from him if he feels, that I've been obviously blessed and I'm able to do all these nice parties for him, that every year I always tell myself, okay, next year I'm not throwing any party for Antonio because, he doesn't understand. And a week before, I find myself arranging birthdays for him because I'm like, he's my only child. He has to have the party. And I think I'm just organizing the parties more or less for myself as well, because at this point, I'm not sure if he understands that much about parties. But I do it anyways, because I never had that when I was growing up. And I feel like I have to do it to show him that I love him.
Absolutely. And to add to what Vivian's saying, children do feel the love or the not love, because unlike Vivian, who had that love from her mother, I didn't have that. And I searched for it my entire life. I searched for that love, and it was very difficult. So not one day goes past when I don't tell my children that I love them and that I'm there for them totally unconditionally. So the next trajectory, Vivian and I, for very different reasons, well, actually the same reason, very same reason. We never thought we'd leave South Africa. We're very, very much South Africans. And then what happens? Two amazing men arrive on the scene.
Oh my
and
man.
Right, we both shake our head, but yes, two amazing men. One an expat South African who's been in Atlanta for 42 years, and after 14 years as a single mother, just flipped my world around. And one an Italian living in Napoli and flips Vivian's life around. I didn't expect to leave South Africa. Even talking about it now with South Africans on this call, I want to cry, and I came prepared. So I cried. I sobbed my eyes out. And for 6 months, I cried. I left everything that I knew back in South Africa. All my contacts that I could call anytime. People knew who I was, so it was much easier for me to do the work that I love. I left friends, familiarity, food, everything behind.
Yeah.
And I was traumatized. I sobbed so much on the flight. I didn't know how I was going to survive this new chapter. My children were not coming with me, and I wasn't sure if they would moving forward. And I cried that the air hostesses on the plane were bringing me ice for my eyes because I couldn't open them. They were so swollen and closed. And Alan on the other side was panic stricken about how he was going to pick me up, what state was I going to be. And then for 6 months after that, I cried every single day. I was still running South Africa Tomorrow Trust. So I was living in a South African bubble, and I was flying back to South Africa more than I was here. So I wasn't settling down, and everything was different. Everything. The food was different. I wasn't digesting the food. I had to learn to buy organic. I didn't have friends that were close to me. I've had to make them, and thank goodness I have. I didn't know the roads. I was driving on the wrong side. I was using Waze all over. Atlanta is a very complicated place. And even just going to the store, you stand in front of the milk section, and in America, there are 25 different kinds of milk. In South Africa, there might be 3. I just didn't know what I was doing. I was thrown completely. I didn't know who I was in the space. I joined every women's group. I thought, I've got to become American in some way. And it was just a very, very traumatic experience. So much so that Alan called Jade, my daughter who lives in Singapore, and said, what do I do with her? And she said, run her bubble baths and light candles. And so every night he would run me a bubble bath and light candles. And what was the most important thing is my cousin in Sydney, who had emigrated, said to me, you have to remember your why. And if I ask you, what is your why in your life? How do you run your life? What is your why? My why for immigrating was Alan. And so when he came through the door at the end of the day, I knew I'm okay. I can get through this. And slowly but surely, it would dissipate. So much so that the one night I ran my own bubble bath and he walked in and there weren't candles lit and I could see the shock on his face. And I went, no, I'm good. I'm okay. I don't need a candle tonight. And so immigration is an incredibly traumatic experience. Everything about it, the culture. The Americans on here will understand this. We all think Americans speak English, but they don't. They speak American.
That's
We speak English. We
Really
speak the Queen's English. Americans, I had to understand. Alan took me to buy a cell phone, and there was this guy, and the Southern accent is even stronger. And so the guy looks at me and he says, you got to switch it off and you got to switch it back on. And Alan looks at me and goes, did you understand anything? I go, not one word. He says, you have to switch the phone off, then you're going to switch it back on, and then it's going to be working. I went, oh, okay, got it. You know, so I don't even understand anything here. It was like landing on another planet.
That's true. Immigration isn't easy. I think I'm going to take this from you away from this discussion. The why. Obviously, for me as well, immigrating to Italy was because of my husband. A very wonderful man that, you know, when you get into relationships, people think when you get into relationships, the issues that you have are based on past relationships. But you can still get into a relationship, but you have all these unresolved issues from a life point of view. I had so much, and I've never realized this until I was with my husband. I had so much issues that I brought from my life, and I sort of had to protect everything, you know, even my husband, even when he doesn't need to, even in situations that are not even harmful situations. And Mariano was, you know, a very wonderful person in supporting me to adjust into Italy, where they speak a different language, where the food is amazing, but obviously I had to also adapt to the food, to the culture. Italians eat, hence I've gained at least more than 30 kilos since I've been here for now five and a half years. But I'm telling you, even the bad moments here are worth it, because I'm with a man that respects me, a man that loves me. And so I never really, I also just switch off and just start crying, and I want to go back to South Africa. But also because I still have, you know, a very important of my life is still also in South Africa. So sometimes I also do get those moments, but maybe I also need to start looking at him and say, okay, you my wife, so I'll just stay longer in Italy. So yeah, immigration is not easy. And I think also there's people here that can relate. You know, people think you're living in Italy, you're married to this Italian man, and obviously it's not difficult in such a way that I can't vent for myself. I don't have food, but it's difficult because it's not easy to make friends. The business culture. So one thing that I, you know, takes, you know, 70% of my time before Antonio was born has been business. I've always been a person that works very hard. So I'm drawn to my work. And so having to adjust and do business in Europe or in Italy has been a challenge. I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm doing it now, but I'm still a learning process.
And to add to that, I have to tell you a beautiful, beautiful story. So obviously, you know, when you do some work, people question it. And so Running Tomorrow Trust, a lot of the alumni now would laugh about it, because it was, who's this white woman? Like, what does she want? What is she doing? But all I wanted to do was give the love that I didn't have growing up. I just couldn't bear to see kids not having opportunity, because my thing is potentiality. That it is tragic when someone doesn't have an opportunity to develop their own potential. And obviously that's a choice, they've got to want to do it. So when I see the alumni being successful, my heart is so filled up. So Jade, my daughter, finishes her MBA Italy, she did postgrad in, and it's a place that we love. And so I call Vivian, I go, we're coming to Rome. Viv, get onto a train. Come, let me spoil you. Come to Rome. Let's spend the day together. She says, no, Kim. Oh, I'm getting emotional. Might need these. So she says, no, Kim, I'm not coming to you. You're coming to me. I go, no, Viv, seriously, we don't have time. Just come, I want to spoil you. She says, no. She says, my secretary, listen to this. This is an AIDS orphan eating grass. Okay. My secretary is going to book you both tickets on the train. You're coming to Napoli and we're going to book you into a hotel and you're going to be with us. Go. Okay. You don't argue with power like Vivian, right? So fine. She books us 2 first-class tickets. Jade and myself, we get on the train, we go to Napoli, and thank goodness Jade is fluent in Italian. Her driver picks us up, doesn't speak a word of English, and he drives us to Vivian and to her family, her beautiful husband and son. And we eat right on the water in a Michelin star restaurant. And hence the title, From Eating Grass in the Field to a Michelin Star. Anita said, I saw Antonio, and that was me. Whew. To see someone so committed, breaking her cycle, was so humbling for me that people looked at me and thought my whole career, being in the media and everywhere else, how confident I was. Confident has never been a thing for me because I was never raised thinking that I could be anyone. But I had, and I still do, so much passion and so much commitment to making the world a better place for children that you don't need confidence for that. You need commitment and involvement. And so no matter what, that was huge for me, watching Vivian going through that. What I discovered coming to live in Atlanta, and my children, my son lives in Sydney, my daughter lives in Singapore, is that every single one of us, every one of you on this call, we all have our own journey. And we have to let go and lead from that. It's not intellectual. You know, going to college and studying is wonderful, but that's not wisdom. Wisdom is accumulated through your own experiences and allowing everyone to be the best version of themselves, regardless of what you believe their mistakes and achievements should be, could be, are. Learning and growing personally from the journey is so important. Each one of us is a teacher, and we are all in process. Everyone is in process. We are all still learning.
So one of the things that I did before the pandemic was to say, to try and deal, for an example, I told about the story of my neighbor. I looked back in my past life and I said, where are the healing points for me? What are the things that, for an example, my mother passed away when I was very, very young, but I knew that there was a lot of things that, used to worry her in terms of, also the family that was left back in Lesotho. So one of the things that I did when I met my husband 6 years ago, I then said, look, I'm in this journey. I want to go to Lesotho and find my family. They don't know me, but let's go. We went into a flight, went to South Africa. From South Africa, we went to Lesotho. And I went to meet my uncles that I've always heard of their names, but never really met them in person. And so from meeting them, this was about 6 years ago, I said, I'm gonna come back. And then, then I became Antonio's mother, and there was also building up of a lot of businesses along the way, and also trying to find my way in Italy. Last year, before the pandemic, a year and a half ago, I can't even remember because we've been on lockdown for about almost 2 years now, just before the lockdown thing started. I was in South Africa and I phoned my eldest sister and I said, look, I think it's time we need to reconnect with the people from our past and start healing, understand where the links are and, all those kind of things. And if you can see on the previous slide, there is a picture of me and my family from Lesotho that came to South Africa because we needed to understand a few things. We needed to understand where my mother was from and, what happened, what led her to her being alone in Johannesburg in South Africa. And for me, that was part of trying to heal ourselves. So dealing with all the past pain that, my mother was, the questions and the things that she wanted to do. And those were things that really, really troubled her, that she was all alone in South Africa. So I went back to wanting to understand that, but most importantly, to also try and mend the relationship with my family members so that they understand that I am not trying to be the better one. I am trying to be the one that breaks the cycle, but I cannot do it alone. I need them to also be in board and support me in terms of what I'm trying to create for the family. And so we had that, visit from my uncle, who's about now 80 years old, very old, and his wife, and they stayed with me for about a week or so in Sandton, and it was a great time. And we still are, connecting and talking to one another and seeing really what we can do to help each other move forward as a family. And besides all of this, one of the things that have been my healing place has been, finding my husband, whom, when we met, I was only 27 years old. And, he is one person that believed in the potential that he saw with me. When he saw me, my business was just starting up in South Africa, and I was not even interested in relationships at the time because I was like, okay, I'm in business, my business, things are happening, and I don't want any distraction. But Mariano has been a good man to me because he has loved me regardless. And now we have a child, and every time when he's making a joke with my son, he says, Antonio, just make sure that and I'm just going to draft away from the healing process and try to lighten up the mood. So my son has 2 girlfriends. The one girlfriend has the father has a pizzeria. And the second girlfriend, the father works for my husband. And so for my husband, so in the Italians, how they pass the legacy. So my husband thinks that for Antonio, his better chances is for him to get married to the pizzeria daughter, because then it means he potentially is going to be a pizzaiola. So he's going to own a pizzeria. And so he always says, don't make the same mistake I made. So I'm the mistake because I was the poor one. So he married a poor woman. And so I'm the mistake. So he said, don't make the same mistake I made. You need to marry Emilia because Emilia's father has a restaurant. So I think, my healing process has a lot to do with him. How he believed in me, and he never said, okay, you're just a woman or a girl from Africa, I'll just marry you and we have children and that's it. He allowed me to still blossom the best way I know how. When through the process of arranging for this workshop, he was asking anything I need to do. Do I have to take Antonio? Are you having a meeting with Kim? And he has just always been my supporter. But beyond just being my supporter, he loves me. And he is one thing that I have in my life that I just trust. And I know it was for me. So that has sort of healed, my journey. And like I said before, the reason why time and again, I get emotional when I speak about my life. For me, I don't think any child deserves to go through what I went through. I don't think any child deserves to grow up in childhood-headed household where really they don't even have that ability to even say, I will figure something out. It will never make sense for me why what happened the way it happened.
Yeah.
And anyone else after what happened. It will never make sense to me. It will never heal me, or I will never find a way that I can say, this is how I'm healing. But I have found, a mechanism to accept that I couldn't change the situation, to also accept that it happened to me because I could handle it. I was strong enough to handle it and still come out better. There's a lot of people that have been orphans and are still orphans till today, if you know what I mean. In a way that they don't necessarily have a direction, and those kind of things. And I'm not talking bad of that because I survived, but I survived because I was prepared as well to receive all the helping mechanisms that was coming my way. For an example, when the Tomorrow Trust said, we are going to assign a psychologist for you, I went to see a psychologist. When the Tomorrow Trust said, we are going to assign a mentor to you, till today, I've never had, a lot of mentors in my life. Till today, the same mentor that was introduced to me when I was 18 by the Tomorrow Trust is still my mentor. And we still talk, and she still, is very much involved in my life. And so I got through so I broke through the cycle because also I was willing to receive the help that I knew that is the help that is going to prepare me or to make me walk the journey. So I've had my moments, growing up, I was like any other child, but I've always known that I've always had that hope, I've always had that faith that it is going to turn out all right.
And from that, what I want to do with everyone is move forward to what I'm doing now is called Free the Mind Co. I started it about 2 years ago with my son based on his books. And everything that Vivian's telling you about now, right through to all of my experience of life that you've been so kind to listen to, is that we started Free the Mind Co. because when you free your mind, you open up to all kinds of possibility and potential. And this is a social emotional learning organization based on my son's books. This is the first one. The illustrations are beautiful. We've got two sides. The one side is for children, for teachers, for parents. It's curriculum that's some of the best work I've ever been involved with. And we do teacher training, we do nurturing work, and we've got a whole online platform starting out, taking our curriculum to everyone. We just want to impact millions and millions of lives around the world. And on the other side, I've started working with women. I have a 12-week, really deep dive self-discovery program. And like Vivian was saying, what she's gotten out of everything is to get to know herself more. And we all need to do that, because without knowing yourself, you actually don't know what you are bringing to the world. It's so important. We're transforming every single day. And we're so busy looking from the outside world in, and we're expecting the outside world to actually make it happen for us. And it can't. Everything starts and finishes. So what we say at Free the Mind Co., you have to go within in order to live without. And one of the things that we really specialize and speak a lot about is fear and anxiety. And with Brent, he used to treat as an integrative healer a lot of our Tomorrow Trust students and alumni. And there was one common denominator between his affluent client and all of my kids at Tomorrow Trust, and that's fear and anxiety. And we've seen it take over the world, and no one talks about it. No one normalizes it. And yet it is part of human being. And so what do you do with it? How do you work with it? And so we do a lot of work around that to help people move from your fear and anxiety to build the most incredible life. And is it hard? Yes. Like the Dalai Lama says, when you realize that life is tough, it becomes easy. And so it's about taking all of that and just learning the skills and the tools in order to how to live life on a daily basis. And so that's what I'm doing now. And I would love to hear from you all. So please reach out. Let's do this. Let's make the impact together. I know that Vivian has even used these books and program in Italy. We use it in South Africa. I'm working in India and Mexico now as well. And so I'd love to collaborate and work with anyone here who is interested and keen. I know time is short, so I want to move forward. But the accumulative wisdom for Viv and I is there's a greater plan than yours. Your inner strength is greater than you'll ever imagine. Life takes tenacity, commitment, discipline, and involvement. Use your inner wisdom. You've earned it. It only comes from your experience. Trust your gut always. It will never, ever let you down. Fill your life with meaning. That will give you fulfillment. We all in process. Don't think that anyone knows all of this, because they don't. We're all learning. And as we grow older, there are more lessons as we shift and change our lives. Self-discovery is essential. You have to go within in order to live without. And your 5 words that I use all the time is where you get your strength from. So my 5 words when I go within are hope, trust, dreams, universal energy, and faith. And I say those every single day. So find your 5 words and make them work for yourself. COVID has thrown us a world that we don't know. We're all just trying to navigate this space. It's been traumatic. I'm doing more teacher support webinars now than I've ever done before. I'm working more with women who are really struggling to hold the space. So what is it for us? For me, it is all about resilience. What is resilience? It's about assessing and reassessing. It's about healing and then reimagining. What do we want in our lives? How do we move forward? What do we want the world to look like from here? So what are your 5 words? And here's just something really beautiful. These are my 5 words, but you can use any. So love, hope, resilience, reimagining through your resilience, your intuition or your gut feeling, let it align for you. Trust yourself and all that you're doing. Have faith that you can do this, that you've got this. Pray. I pray every single day. And the universal energy is there to support you. If you allow it, it will be there for you.
That's,
So,
you know, maybe I can just come in a little bit on COVID, just to add on, because I mean it's the only thing that we are dealing with basically since the past 2 years. We're dealing with this COVID-19 pandemic, but I think through COVID we've experienced so many little things that we think that are little that have come into play, where people are so divided, where nations are so divided. And I think COVID is one thing that is showing us that there is a lot that still needs to be done. And not only by me, not only by Kim, but by all of us in the universe. We all need to come into play. We saw what happened in America with the issues that they had. We saw what happened just recently with Israel. We saw what happened just a few days ago in South Africa. I think COVID is one pandemic that is exposing how many other pandemics that have always been there. And, we're just ignoring and ignoring and ignoring. However, I also think COVID is one period that has been able to bring the people together. And I think this is the whole idea of this session today, to say we would like to show, how we healed from our past experiences, how we are still healing from our journeys, but most importantly, how we are trying to heal from the pandemic. Economically, businesses are closing because of the pandemic. People are divided. And so maybe we need to use this time to just love on each other as a nation, regardless of if we are male, females, black, white, green. We need to come together and love each other as humans.
And as Vivian's saying, that's why we decided to do this together. So you can see, and I hope you can all feel the love between us, because it's real. And there's no such thing. It's all in our imaginations. We create these blockages of color and religion and creed and all of that. But when you've got love in your heart and respect, and you're prepared to actually look at yourself first and go into that self-discovery, then that's all that it takes. And so I'm going to miss, unfortunately, the next slide, because I know we've got time issues. But we have blessed lives, both Vivian and myself, through all my trauma growing up and all trying to work through my childhood and being a single mom and everything else that life brings. I have such a blessed life. I've had people enter my life that has just been incredible. And so I hope that you too are living your own best life. So if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader, and we are all leaders. And so Vivian and I, those are our contact details. In chat, please contact us, LinkedIn or Instagram. You can follow me at Free the Mind Co. I'm really good with getting back to you. And so we want to we've got 6 more minutes. If anyone's got a question, please unmute yourself, or you can write in chat. We are here. We want to do the work together. We want to just make the world a better place with you.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Cabello.
Do you have at this point like clear action steps that you would like from us as to how we can assist, or would you like us to suggest maybe things that we are thinking of?
Thank you, Cabello.
Of course, I have things that I'm thinking of, but I would like to know what kind of help do you require?
Cabello, I would
I lost you there, Kim. Can everyone still hear Kim?
So
No.
everyone?
Yes, she's back now.
Okay. So Cabello, thank you for that. I've put my email address in there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Unfortunately, time is really short. We do need help. I need help. Free the Mind Co. I'm trying to, all my work has always been mile deep and inch wide, because the interventions were just so long. What I'm trying to do now is go mile wide. I'm trying to impact millions out there, and I can't do it by myself. So I would so appreciate connecting with you all and brainstorming how we can actually do this, because everything starts with a mindset, as you can hear with Vivian. It's just remarkable when you have those skills and those tools, what you can do with your life. She is such a role model and such confirmation and affirmation for what I've always believed, that you can change tomorrow. So please, please just email me, wherever you are, you just as that one person can make such a difference to so many.
Yeah, can I just, try to say a very special thank you to my friends that are very dear to my heart from the USA, Indira, Brenda, and Katie. I see that also Vivian Onano. So I met Vivian Onano at the UN, and she does amazing work. So I think you and Vivian needs to connect, Kim. She was in South Africa.
I know Viv very well, and we are connecting, we are speaking.
So thank you also again for coming in and joining. I would also love to give a special friend to two of my childhood friends, Amani and Gabelo. They've known me since I was like 12 years. I went to the same primary school and high school with Gabelo. Amani has been my best friend for more than 20 years. So thank you so very much for my family. Also my sister, I see that my sister is also here. Thank you very much for showing the love. Please, guys, support Kim in her work. Here and then, I also try to buy books and also donate in South Africa as well. Kim, please share as much information so that, I know Amani also does the same work. This is why I'm highlighting these people, Amani, because she can also connect with you. She works with the Department of Education in South Africa as well. So please,
Amani, yes.
Kim
I'm happy to train up teachers for the curriculum. The curriculum is amazing. It's so easy to use. And so Amani, everyone, please, reach out to me. I'm very happy to give my email again. It's kim@freethemindco.com, which is very easy. And at Free the Mind Co. Please, that would be amazing. So sending you all love as we close. Vivian, I love you so much. Thank you for doing this with me. I know how busy you are. I know that you're going into the evening, and I love you. And please, God, we can meet again in Italy. I know she wants to come to me in America, but we're going to have this juggle because I want to go meet her. Maybe we'll meet somewhere totally different.
Tell Indira and Brenda and Katie that South Africa is beautiful. They must come to South Africa. I'm trying to get them to come to South Africa.
And yes, it will be recorded. So please email me and I'll send it to you. And yeah, thank you so much for giving your time. We so appreciate you listening to us. Have a beautiful, beautiful day or evening.
Bye,
Bye everyone. Bye.